"You don't belong here. Go back to the jungle where you came from." Those words came from a boy named Elvis Buckley. He said them loud enough for the whole lunch table to hear. Every student in that corner of the cafeteria turned to look at the new kid. The new kid's name was Franklin Turner. He had just moved to Harlow Prep 3 weeks ago. He sat down quietly with his tray and did not say a single word back. Elvis was 14 years old and already the most feared student in the school. His father owned a chain of car dealerships across 3 states. Elvis wore the most expensive sneakers. He carried the newest phone. He walked the halls like the school belonged to him. Most kids either laughed with him or stayed far away from him. Franklin was also 14. He was tall for his age, with a quiet face and calm eyes. He wore clean but plain clothes every day. He never talked about his family or where he came from. He did his work in class and went home. That was all most people knew about him. Elvis had started on Franklin the very first day. He knocked Franklin's books off his desk in homeroom. He called him names in the hall between second and third period. He made loud jokes about Franklin at the water fountain. His two best friends, a boy named Drew and a boy named Sutton, always laughed right on cue. The lunch table moment was just the latest in a long line of attacks. Franklin picked up his fork and started eating. He looked straight at his food and did not look up at Elvis. Elvis laughed and nudged Drew with his elbow. Drew shook his head and laughed too. Sutton pulled out his phone and pointed it at Franklin as if recording a video. A girl named Priya sat 2 tables away. She watched the whole thing with her mouth pressed tight. She had seen Elvis do this before, not just to Franklin but to other kids. She had never said anything because she did not want to become the next target. But something about the way Franklin just sat there, quietly eating, made her feel sick in her stomach. After lunch, Franklin walked to his locker. Elvis appeared at the end of the hallway. He was not alone. Drew and Sutton walked on either side of him like bodyguards. Elvis got to Franklin's locker first and leaned against it with one shoulder. Franklin stopped 2 feet away and waited. He did not ask Elvis to move. He just stood there with his backpack in both hands. "You waiting for something?" Elvis said. He crossed his arms and looked down at Franklin. Franklin looked at the locker, then back at Elvis. "I need to get my book," he said. His voice was flat and calm. "Funny, I don't see your name on it," Elvis said. Drew laughed. Sutton was already filming again. A teacher walked past the end of the hallway. Elvis pushed off the locker and stepped aside just in time. The teacher looked over, saw nothing out of place, and kept walking. Elvis smiled and walked away. Franklin opened his locker, got his book, and went to class. That evening, Franklin walked home alone. He always walked home alone. The school was in a wealthy part of town. Franklin walked past all the big houses and kept going for 20 more minutes until he reached a quieter street. He stopped at a house that looked different from everything around it. It was a large white house behind a tall iron gate. A man in a black jacket stood near the gate and nodded when Franklin walked up. The gate opened. Franklin walked inside. Inside, the house was clean and wide and full of light. A woman in a blue dress came quickly from the back of the house. She was tall with the same calm eyes as Franklin. "How was school today?" she asked. She touched his cheek lightly with one hand. "It was fine," Franklin said. She looked at him for a long moment. "Just fine," she said. "Yes," he said. He pulled off his backpack and set it by the stairs. A man came in from the side hallway. He was large, with broad shoulders and a full beard going slightly gray at the edges. He wore a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He looked at Franklin the same way the woman did, with careful eyes that noticed things. "You are quiet today," the man said. "I am always quiet," Franklin said. The man smiled. It was a small smile but real. "Come eat," he said. They sat at a long wooden table in the kitchen. The woman brought food from the stove. There was rice and stew and a plate of fried plantain. Franklin ate. His parents talked about their day, about phone calls and schedules, and a meeting coming up on Friday. Franklin listened but did not say much. After dinner, Franklin went upstairs to his room and opened his laptop. He did his homework slowly and carefully, one subject at a time. Then he turned off the light and went asleep. The next morning at school, things got worse. Sutton had posted the video from the hallway. He had added words across the screen in big yellow letters. The words said things that were ugly and not worth repeating here. By the time first period started, almost every student in the ninth grade had seen the video. Some of them had sent it forward. Some of them laughed about it in the halls. A few of them looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Franklin found out about the video when Priya came up to him before class started. She showed him her phone screen. She held it up and looked at his face to see what he would do. Franklin looked at the screen for 3 seconds. Then he looked at Priya. "Thank you for telling me," he said. He turned and went to his desk. Priya stood there for a moment with her phone still up. Then she put it away and sat down. Elvis walked in 2 minutes later. He made eye contact with Franklin from across the room. He raised one eyebrow. Franklin looked back at him without blinking, then looked at the board. Elvis looked almost disappointed that Franklin had not reacted more. He sat down and flipped open his notebook like nothing had happened at all. The teacher came in and class started. It was an English class. They were reading a short passage about justice and what it meant to different people in different times. The teacher, a woman named Miss Colton, asked the class to say what the word justice meant to them. Elvis raised his hand first. "It means people get what they deserve," he said. He said it while looking directly at Franklin. Miss Colton nodded. "Anyone else?" she said. Priya raised her hand. "It means the punishment fits what was done," she said. Miss Colton wrote both answers on the board. She did not notice the way Elvis had looked at Franklin when he spoke. Or maybe she noticed but chose to move on. Either way, the moment passed. At lunch, Franklin sat alone. He had started sitting alone after the first week. He ate quietly and looked out the window at the school's wide green lawn. 2 teachers stood outside talking near the main building. A group of younger students played catch near the far fence. The sky was pale gray, and the trees at the edge of the property had started losing their leaves. Elvis walked past Franklin's table with his tray. He did not stop, but as he passed, he tipped the edge of Franklin's juice carton with one finger. The carton fell over. Juice spread across the table and onto Franklin's lap. Elvis kept walking. His table erupted in laughter. Franklin stood up, pulled napkins from the dispenser, and cleaned the table. He did not look at Elvis's table. He finished the rest of his lunch standing up. 2 tables away, Priya watched with a tight jaw. She looked around the cafeteria. Other kids were watching too, but no one said anything. No one stood up. No one called a teacher over. Everyone either laughed or looked away. After school, a woman pulled up to the curb in a black car. She was not Franklin's mother. She wore a dark jacket and had short, natural hair and a quiet, professional way about her. Franklin got in the back seat and the car drove off. Inside the car, the woman handed Franklin a small envelope. Franklin opened it and read the card inside. He nodded once and put it in his bag. "Your father wants a word tonight," the woman said. "I know," Franklin said. She glanced at him in the rear-view mirror. "He also called the school," she said. Franklin looked out the window. "What did he say?" he asked. "Not much. He wanted to know who the principal was," she said. Franklin was quiet for the rest of the drive. That night, after dinner, Franklin sat across from his father in the study. The room had 1 lamp on and 2 chairs facing each other. His father sat with both hands on the arms of the chair. He looked at Franklin with no expression. "Tell me everything," his father said. Franklin told him. He started from the first day and went through everything that had happened. The books knocked off the desk, the names in the hall, the locker, the video online. He spoke in a plain, steady voice. He left nothing out. When he finished, his father was quiet for a long time. "You did not fight back," his father said. "It was not a question." "No," Franklin said. His father nodded slowly. "Good," he said. He stood up and put one hand on Franklin's shoulder for just a moment. Then he walked out of the room. Franklin sat in the chair alone for a moment. Then he got up and went to bed. The next morning, something felt different at Harlow Prep before the first bell even rang. There were 2 black cars parked in front of the school, one on each side of the main entrance. Three men in dark jackets stood near the front steps, talking quietly to each other. Principal, a thin man named Mr. Forsyth, stood just inside the glass doors with his hands clasped together. He was watching the parking lot with wide eyes. A long black car pulled up slowly to the curb in front of the school. The driver got out first and opened the back door. Franklin's father stepped out. He wore a dark gray suit with a white shirt underneath and no tie. He was a big man, and he moved with the kind of slow, deliberate ease that comes from a person who is never in a hurry. Behind him came Franklin's mother in a navy coat. Then a third person stepped out, a tall woman in a sharp black blazer carrying a leather folder under one arm. Students who were arriving at that moment stopped on the path and stared. Elvis Buckley was one of them. He stood near the bike rack with Drew and Sutton and watched the cars and the men in jackets and Franklin's father walking toward the front door. Mr. Forsyth pushed the glass door open himself before Franklin's father even reached the steps. "Mr. Turner," Mr. Forsyth said. His voice was careful, and his smile was the kind of smile a person puts on when they are not sure what is about to happen. "We are very glad you came in. Please come this way." Franklin's father did not smile back. He walked inside without a word. Elvis watched the door close behind them. For the first time in a long time, he did not look relaxed. Inside the school, Franklin was already in homeroom. He sat at his desk with his notebook open. A student near the window had seen the cars pull up and was telling the kids around him in a fast whisper. 3 rows over, someone else was already on their phone typing. Within 4 minutes, a quiet, fast current was moving through the whole building. Nobody knew exactly what was happening, but everyone could feel that something was. Franklin kept his eyes on his notebook. The door to homeroom opened. A secretary stepped in and said something quietly to the teacher. The teacher looked over at Franklin. "Franklin," she said, "please take your things and go to the main office." Every head in the room turned. Franklin picked up his bag without rushing. He walked to the door without looking at anyone. The door closed behind him. In the main office, his parents were seated across a wide desk from Mr. Forsyth. The woman with the leather folder sat to the right. She had it open on her knees and a pen in her hand. 2 other adults sat along the wall. One was a man from the school board. The other was the school's legal advisor, a woman who had driven 40 minutes to get there that morning. Franklin came in and sat next to his mother. She touched his hand once briefly. His father looked at him and gave a single, slow nod. Mr. Forsyth leaned forward. "Franklin, I want you to know that this school takes what happened to you very seriously," he said. His voice had the careful sound of a man reading from an invisible script. Franklin looked at him and said nothing. His father spoke first. "My son has been targeted in this school for 3 weeks," he said. His voice was steady and low, the kind of voice that did not need to get loud to fill a room. "There is a video online with his face in it that your staff did not take down or report to us." He paused. "We are not here to shout. We are here to be very clear." The woman with the folder turned a page. She did not look up. Mr. Forsyth swallowed. "We understand," he said. "We have identified the students involved. We are prepared to take immediate disciplinary action today." "That is a start," Franklin's father said. He set both hands flat on the desk and looked at Mr. Forsyth directly. "My name is Emmanuel Turner. I sit on the board of the foundation that funds 40% of this school's scholarship program." He said it simply, like he was reading an address. "My wife chairs the Regional Education Oversight Council. We know what the rules are. We also know when they have not been followed." The school board man shifted in his chair. The legal advisor wrote something in her notepad. Mr. Forsyth's careful smile was gone now. He looked like a man doing very fast arithmetic in his head. "We will handle this today," Mr. Forsyth said. "You have my word." "We are not here for your word," Franklin's mother said. It was the first time she had spoken. Her voice was even and clear, like a clean cut. "We are here for a written plan, a timeline and documentation. My colleague has the outline." She nodded at the woman with the folder. The woman slid 3 printed pages across the desk to Mr. Forsyth. He picked them up and read them slowly. Franklin sat beside his mother and looked at the wall. 2 floors up, in a history class he was not paying attention to, Elvis Buckley was staring at his phone under the desk. Someone had sent him a screenshot of a news article that had gone up less than an hour ago. The headline said that Emmanuel Turner, founder of the Turner Group and one of the largest private education donors in the region, was meeting with school leadership at Harlow Prep over a reported bullying incident. Elvis read it twice. His face went the color of old paper. He looked up at Drew, who sat 1 row ahead. Drew had his phone out too. Sutton, 1 row behind, was very still and staring at the floor. The teacher asked a question about the lesson. Nobody at that end of the room answered. By the time the lunch bell rang, Elvis had been called out of 2 classes by a secretary. Each time she came to the door, said his name quietly, and he had to get up in front of everyone and follow her out. The second time, Drew was called out right after him. Sutton got his call during the first 10 minutes of art class. They were brought one at a time to a conference room off the main office. Inside the room, a woman from the district sat at the head of the table. She had a yellow legal pad, and she asked questions in a flat, professional tone that made it clear she was not interested in excuses. Elvis sat in the chair across from her with his father on one side of him and a family lawyer on the other side. His father, a broad man in a business casual shirt, did not look at Elvis once during the whole meeting. Elvis was asked to describe, in order, everything he had done to Franklin Turner since the first day of school. The woman wrote it all down. Elvis spoke in a low voice and looked at the table. When he finished, the woman set down her pen and looked at him for a moment without speaking. Then she turned to his father and began speaking about consequences. Elvis's father sat very still and listened. Sutton's parents came in looking confused and then alarmed. Drew's mother came alone. She sat in the chair and covered her mouth with one hand when the woman read back the list of incidents aloud. In a different room down the hall, Franklin sat with his parents and Mr. Forsyth, while the written plan was reviewed page by page. Every bullet point had a name attached to it and a date. The video had already been reported and taken down from every platform it appeared on. A formal letter would go into each involved student's permanent file. The 3 boys would each serve a 2-week suspension starting the next day. On their return, they would be placed in a structured behavior program monitored by the school counselor and reviewed every 30 days. Franklin listened to all of it without speaking. At the end, Mr. Forsyth looked at him and said, "Franklin, I am sorry this happened in our school." Franklin looked at him. He did not say it was fine because it was not fine. He said, "Thank you." Then he looked at his father. His father stood up. That was the signal that the meeting was over. Outside the school, Elvis's father walked to his car without talking to anyone. Elvis walked behind him with his hands in his pockets and his head low. The parking lot was not busy at that hour, but the few students and parents who were there saw them. Nobody said anything. The car door closed. The car drove away. The next 2 days at school were quiet in a different way than before. Priya sat down next to Franklin at lunch on the second day. She did not make a big speech. She just set her tray down and said, "Is this seat taken?" Franklin looked at her. He shook his head. She sat down. They ate mostly in silence, but it was a calm silence, the kind that does not need to be filled. Other students began sitting closer too, not all at once, but gradually. A boy named Felix from Franklin's history class asked to borrow a pencil and stayed to talk for a few minutes. A girl named Amma, who had moved from another country 2 years earlier, waved at Franklin in the hall, and he waved back. The space that Elvis had carved out around Franklin with his cruelty slowly began to close. 3 weeks after the meeting, the school held a formal assembly on community standards. A speaker came in from outside the district. She stood at the front of the auditorium and spoke to the whole student body about what it means to see something wrong and say nothing. She did not name names. She did not need to. Franklin sat in the 3rd row. He listened. When the assembly ended, students filed out into the hall in long rows. Elvis Buckley was back in school by then. He walked out near the back of the auditorium between Drew and Sutton, the same formation as always. But something was different. The easy, careless energy was gone. He walked with his eyes forward and his mouth closed. He did not look for Franklin in the crowd. Franklin walked out of a different row and passed within 10 feet of Elvis in the hallway. Elvis saw him. Franklin saw Elvis. Neither of them stopped. Neither of them spoke. Elvis looked away first. Franklin kept walking. At home that evening, his father was in the study again with the lamp on. The door was open. Franklin stopped in the doorway. His father looked up from his desk. "How was today?" his father asked. "It was good," Franklin said. He paused for a moment. "Better than before." His father looked at him steadily. "Are you sure?" he said. "Yes," Franklin said. His father nodded and looked back at his desk. Franklin stood there one more second, then turned and went upstairs. He sat at his desk and opened his laptop. He did his homework the same way he always did, slowly and carefully, one subject at a time. When he was done, he closed the laptop and looked at the window. Outside, the trees had lost almost all their leaves now. The street below was quiet. A single lamp on the corner made a soft circle of yellow light on the dark pavement. Franklin looked at it for a moment. Then he turned off his light and went to sleep.